The voice in the dark. The evening sun cast long shadows across Unity Secondary School's compound as Nduka adjusted his navy blue security uniform and began his nightly patrol. After 15 years of guarding the school, he knew every corner, every creaking gate, and every loose brick in the aging walls. The students and teachers had long gone home, leaving behind only the echoes of their daily activities. Nduka took pride in his work. At 55 years old, he was no longer the young man who had first taken this job, but his dedication had never wavered. He would walk the perimeter 6 times each night, check every classroom door, and ensure the science laboratory remained securely locked. The school principal often praised him as the most reliable member of staff. That fateful Tuesday evening started like any other. The harmattan wind rustled through the mango trees that lined the school fence, carrying with it the familiar scent of dust and dried leaves. Nduka had just finished his first round when he heard it. "Don't look for me. I am here." The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Nduka stopped in his tracks, his torch beam cutting through the darkness. "Who's there?" he called out, his deep voice steady despite the unease growing in his chest. Only the wind answered. Convincing himself it was just his imagination, Nduka continued his rounds. But as he passed the Form 3 block, the voice returned. "I am operating in this school. Don't search." This time, the words carried a hint of amusement, as if the speaker was enjoying Nduka's confusion. He began a thorough search of the building, checking behind every door and under every desk. The beam of his torch revealed nothing but empty classrooms and scattered chalk dust. Over the next few weeks, the voice became Nduka's unwanted companion. It would speak to him at random intervals, always with the same message but in slightly different ways. Sometimes it whispered, sometimes it seemed to echo off the walls, but it never revealed its source. The experience began to affect Nduka's work. He found himself taking longer routes during his patrol, avoiding certain areas where the voice seemed strongest. Dark circles formed under his eyes as sleep became elusive. During the day, he would doze off in his small security post, only to jerk awake at the memory of that mysterious voice. His colleagues noticed the change in him. Matthew, the day guard, would find him muttering to himself during the morning handover. The cleaners whispered among themselves about how the once jovial security man now jumped at the slightest sound. One particularly dark night, during the new moon, Nduka decided he had had enough. After hearing the voice for the 3rd time that evening, he planted his feet firmly on the ground near the assembly hall. "I don't know who or what you are," he announced to the darkness. "But this is my school. I have protected it for 15 years, and I will continue to do so. If you mean no harm, then we can share this space. But if you're here to cause trouble, know that I won't back down." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, softly at first but growing stronger, came the sound of laughter, not menacing, but almost respectful. 15 years. The voice mused, clearer than ever before. "Yes, I have watched you all this time. Your dedication is why I chose to reveal myself. I am the spirit of this institution, guardian of knowledge and growth. I have existed here since the first foundation stone was laid." Nduka felt a strange calm settle over him. "Why show yourself now?" "Because the school faces a threat," the voice replied. "Next week, during the final exams, some students plan to break in and steal the question papers. They must be stopped, but I cannot interact with the physical world as you can." From that night forward, Nduka's relationship with the voice changed. Together, they prevented the exam theft, catching the culprits in the act. The voice would warn him of potential dangers, from loose electrical wires to students attempting to sneak in after hours. What had once terrified him became his greatest ally in protecting the school. Years later, When young security guards would join the staff, they would often hear Enduka talking to someone during his rounds. They assumed the old man was simply keeping himself company in the dark. But those who worked at Unity Secondary School long enough began to notice that whenever Enduka was on duty, the school seemed safer, more peaceful, as if protected by more than just one dedicated security guard. And on quiet nights, if you listen carefully, you might still hear two voices in conversation, one belonging to the faithful watchman, and the other to his mysterious partner in guardianship, forever watching over the halls of learning they both had sworn to protect. As Enduka grew older, he came to understand that some mysteries in life aren't meant to be feared, but embraced. The voice that had once haunted his nights had become a reminder that dedication and courage could bridge the gap between the natural and supernatural, between the known and the unknown. In time, younger security guards would gather around Enduka during their breaks, listening to his tales of the voice in the dark. Some dismissed them as the ramblings of an old man, while others felt a shiver run down their spines when working the night shift. But all agreed on one thing: no other school in the region was as well protected as Unity Secondary School, where a man named Enduka and his unseen companion kept their eternal vigil. The new academic term brought fresh faces to Unity Secondary School. The morning air buzzed with excitement as first-year students wandered through the unfamiliar compound, their brand-new uniforms still stiff with starch. Enduka watched from his post near the main gate, a knowing smile playing on his weathered face. After his encounters with the school's spirit, he thought he had seen everything there was to see at Unity Secondary. He was wrong. It began during the second week of term. The evening had settled in, bringing with it the familiar chorus of crickets and the distant calls of nightbirds. Enduka was making his usual rounds, occasionally exchanging quiet words with his unseen companion, the spirit that had become his partner in protecting the school. The new students seemed promising, he remarked to the air, knowing the spirit would hear him. But instead of the familiar voice he had grown accustomed to, a different sound cut through the darkness. I walk where they walk. I see what they cannot. Do not search. The voice was different, higher, more musical, yet carrying an undercurrent of something ancient. Enduka froze mid-step, his torch beam wavering. This wasn't his familiar spirit companion. Another one, he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The original spirit's voice emerged, concerned. You hear it too, old friend. This is unexpected. Over the next few weeks, the new voice became a regular occurrence. Unlike the first spirit, which seemed bound to the school buildings and grounds, this one appeared to follow the students themselves. It would drift through the corridors during class hours, its whispers mixing with the scratch of chalk on blackboards and the murmur of lessons. Enduka found himself in the unusual position of mediating between two supernatural entities. The original spirit, protective of its territory, initially regarded the newcomer with suspicion. The new voice, meanwhile, seemed more interested in the students than the physical space of the school. One particularly memorable incident occurred during the inter-house sport competition. Enduka was stationed near the football field when both voices spoke simultaneously, creating an eerie harmony that made the hair on his neck stand up. The boy in red house. The new voice sang. Third row, limping slightly. Added his familiar companion. He needs help. They concluded in unison. Acting on their warning, Enduka approached the student in question, a young boy named Chidi who had been trying to hide an injury so he could compete. The timely intervention prevented what could have been a serious accident. As the term progressed, Enduka began to understand that the two spirits served different but complementary purposes. His original companion remained the guardian of the school's physical space, while the newcomer watched over the students themselves, their hopes, fears, and growing pains. The dual presence changed how Enduka approached his duties. He found himself paying more attention to the students' behaviors and emotional states, not just their physical safety. the human bridge between the seen and unseen, ensuring that both the school's structure and its soul remain safe under his watch.